Welcome back everyone to Scavenging with Pineleaf, a series of tales, travels, and trifles. And it's time to find out what tales, travels, and trifles we have for year 5.
Ribbons? Lists? What does it all mean?
My new suspicion of this adventuring troublemaker is Bingo Boffin. He is behind all of this, I'm sure of it. Of course, I haven't a shred of evidence, but I feel sure that I am right. Bingo Boffin? You mean the one who went on that long adventure with me a while back? Well, nah. Alright. I will check the cards to see if anything in there indicates that it could be Bingo. Let's see what we have here. Tales of Mary. See, I need to gather remembrances of Brandy Hall. All over things done that are related to Mary. Alright, I guess that makes sense. And bodies of water all over the place. Now, I presume, of course, they chose bodies of water for Mary because of the 4 hobbits, he's the one who's most familiar with waterways. Because when they decided that they were going to be rowing down the Anduin for a while, what they decided, of course, at first was that certain people are supposed to be doing the rowing. And Mary volunteered, despite the fact that hobbits aren't generally associated with water. Those in Brandenburg along the Brandywine are. So therefore, yes. I guess that's why they decided to associate the bodies of water with Mary's year. And for trifles is reflections too, and various instances in here that one may have done in the past. We obviously won't have time to do all of these instances, but I'm sure we could come up with one that could be appropriate. But first, let us take care of Mary. Well, I'm not doing this in the most efficient way possible. I think it would be a little bit on the ridiculous side for me to be right next to Bag End and not do the item that's near Bag End first. And of course, Mary had prepared the wagons that are then sent out ahead to Creek Hollow. So therefore, we will take care of this section first. And we need to carry some packs to the ponies then. And here are the packs, all nice and ready. And let's bring them to the ponies. There, they are nearly ready to set off and head over to Creek Hollow so that Mary will have everything nice and prepared for when Frodo, Sam, and Pippin arrive. Now, they don't meet Mary, though, until they reach Buckleberry Ferry. And here we are, approaching Buckleberry Ferry. Right over here. On the far side, they could just make out a figure like a dark black bundle. Now, that's, of course, after they crossed Buckleberry Ferry. Or after they crossed the Brandywine using Buckleberry Ferry. The ferry's on the far end, and they decided in the game that they wanted to have the ferry out of commission because Mary and Company crossed it, and the Nazgul, the Black Rider, was on this side. And Mary, Frodo, Sam, and Pippin, of course, got to the other side, and I presume the ferry might have gotten damaged when the Nazgul attacked a few nights later after they left Creek Hollow. So I presume that's the reason they had an excuse not to have it in the game, because I'm sure they would really thought it was fun back in the day to try to implement the ferry within the game. But now we have to cross. Yeah, I have a feeling not too many hobbits would cross it by swimming because hobbits aren't exactly want to swim. Even though, of course, we know that in their roots, hobbits were descended from river folk. But at least the Shire hobbits lost much of the habit of swimming. But here we are at the first item that was actually in the list for this year, and that is, of course, Brandy Hall, where Merry would have been born and raised, and he'll someday be the master of Brandy Hall. So this is Merry's home. And let's get another one here. Good. The bird bath. I'm sorry, but you might find you have more in common with the gardeners. Well, I am sure that I missed a good portion of that conversation somehow. Unless she was speaking to me. Now, here's the fourth one right up here. So now we can get into the order that this was intended. And the next one is the bonfire glade. And the bonfire glade, of course, is being associated with Merry because Merry's the one who knows something of the old forest. The old forest, just like streams, is a place that hobbits never go into. They think of it as being a terrible place that you can't go into. Except, of course, the people in Buckland. Now, the people in Buckland live right next to the old forest, so they'll either have to be the ones who are most scared of it or have come up with a way to contend with it. Because now we're in the old forest, they keep a gate there, and they also have the bonfire glade where they once set a fire there, and apparently they've been in an uneasy truce with the forest, or at least parts of the forest, since then. The forest did not like the bonfire, as you can imagine. So, yeah, they come in there, but they have to keep your wits about you when you're in this place, I would presume. I'm going to have to reread the Lord of the Rings soon so that I can remember the exact story behind the bonfire and all that stuff. But that's it for this section, because now it's time to head over to Elrond's house. So it's quite a bit to travel before we get to our next section. We are at the last homely house in Rivendell, and we need to study some maps here. Why study maps? Because it is noted in the books that Merry studied the maps. He thus knew some of the areas that they were going to be seeing, and that Pippin did not know, and it became pretty important later on that he did do some study of maps. Now, perhaps they weren't as complete as some of the others did, but his study of the maps did become important along the course. Oh, there it is. There's the second map. Did become important along the later parts of the story. The third map, though, would be in the Hall of Fire, where Bilbo sang his little song about Arendelle. There you go. And actually, when I was coming in here and thinking about Bilbo here, I, of course, came to wondering about who would be the 10th person, because we have 10 years in all of this, and the pattern so far has been members of the Fellowship. But I was wondering, who's the 10th member of the Fellowship? Because there are only 9 in the Fellowship. But then number 10 could be, of course, Bilbo, because there is a story about Bilbo that starts this entire mess with the Hobbit. So perhaps at the end we will get to visit various things to do with Bilbo. Though if that's the case, we are going to have to wait a few more weeks before we find out, because we are currently in year 5 But now it's time to head over to Fanghorn. Another possibility for the 10th member of the Fellowship would of course be our own story. In other words, instead of going back and having remembrances of Bilbo, it could be the travels that we have done all throughout the epic story. And believe me, we've done a great number of travels all throughout the epic storyline. And here we are at Welling Hall. And of course, at Welling Hall, we could have a little bit of draft. Yep. Let's have a nice drink up. Drink was like water, and yet there could be some scent to which they could not describe. And it helped them grow a bit, which is why Pippin is the tallest hobbit on record. Because he had a little bit, let's say, of draft to help him grow a little bit. Now, of course, after a drink like that, it's time for a nice, good meal. And what better place for a nice meal than Isengard? Here's a journey that would have been a lot easier if I had.
I am afraid of what is happening to these lands.
If I had thought of unlocking the stable master the last time I was here. But we are going to go inside to have our little lunch. It's not the most comfortable environment in which to have a meal, but it's better than doing it in the cells, especially considering that currently the cells are a bit wet, and I mean wetter than this place. Well, bottoms up. Alright, that's our little meal. So now, let us have a word with Eowyn. It's now time to thank Eowyn for taking us along, or taking Mary along, of course, for the little trip to the Pelennor Fields. Thank you. Thus, when they set out, Durnhelm sat Meriadoc on the back of Windfolla, who made little of the burden. Windfolla, of course, was Eowyn's horse during the Battle of Pelennor Fields, and Durnhelm is the name she took during the traveling because, yes, she wasn't going to advertise to everyone, "Hey, everyone, I'm the king's niece and I'm coming along for the battle." Yeah, that wouldn't have worked. Now, Windfolla being the name of Eowyn's horse, that of course is also the name of the server where I played for a long time, between the time that we released Moria and the time when they merged the servers, and the folks I knew over at Windfolla then headed over to Crickhollow. Though I've also played on other servers, and I have wardens on all the US servers plus on Larland. So therefore, yeah, I've played on a few servers. Now we've thought about Windfolla, it's now time to think about the next horse down the list, and that is of course the king's horse, Snowmane. And for Snowmane, we have this little monument here. So let us mourn for Snowmane, who was killed during the Battle of Pelennor Fields. But for Snowmane they dug a grave and raised a stone. Faithful servant, Master's bane. Snowmane. Now, of course, there were others killed in the battle, including Theoden, but there are some who were surviving the battle. Though, of course, there were those who survived the battle but were hurt in the process. And now let's go and visit one of those, and that, of course, is the most important one to contend with, the person we are following today, and that is Meriadoc Brandybuck. who we'll find in the Houses of Healing. And here we are in the Houses of Healing, where we have Mary here, who is taking a bit of a rest, and Pippin keeping guard. Obviously this isn't after the time we set out then, because after we set out, Pippin is busy doing other stuff. Now let's see how Mary is doing. There's a grayness in Mary's face, as if years' worth of shadow lay upon him, and he fears suddenly for his life. So apparently we didn't get to have our little conversation. But hopefully he'll be able to speak with us afterwards, after we get from the battle. That's of course if we do. Do you really think it was Bingo? It turns out that Bingo has been busy reading about cooking at the Tuckborough Library. Everyone saw him there. Well, I am fully dispirited now and ready to hand in the towel. But no, I must persevere. The party planning committee is counting on me, and trust me, friend, you do not want to disappoint the party planning committee. Here, have another reward. Oh. What do I get this time, I wonder? You may be wondering, what nice yard items or what nice cosmetic pets we got this time? Neither. What we got was a fishing creel, as you see on my back here. I suppose the people in Buckland are the ones most likely to do fishing, so I suppose they thought that was appropriate. And we have Treebeard's ladle, so that we can bring out some in draft if we had some about us. So things that are associated with Mary at least, though not the usual type that we've been getting along for most of the series. Well, that's it for this week's episode, or I should say today's episode. When we return next time, we will head into some travels where we will look at some waterways in our next episode of Scavenging with Pineleaf, a series of tales, travels, and trifles.